So for my final project, I decided to go ahead and, sorry, let me go ahead and head back. All right. So for my final project, I decided to go ahead and oversee the team that is responsible for the cloning process. While watching these guys' steps and procedures, I noticed a couple little issues with their trimming techniques, the Clonex solution being used, the way that they had their lights set up were set up for the wrong cycle of the plant. The temperature settings were off as well as their humidity settings. So we're just going to go ahead and dive right into this and talk about the correct way to go ahead and fix these. So as far as our trimming, I noticed that there were different members of the team using different techniques when trimming the plants. Some would cut the plants at a 45-degree angle, which is correct, and some would cut them at a 90-degree angle, which uh, it works, but it's not very beneficial to the plant when you do cut it like this. And when you do cut anywhere in between the 45 to 90-degree mark, it allows the plant to scab over easier. That's why this 45-degree angle is so important because it helps minimize the rate that the plant actually scabs over and really helps to um, promote adventitious root growth. And it makes it a little easier when dealing with the Clonex solution because it allows it to really coat the plant a little easier and not have super concentrated portions um, build up and just make it a little because when you do have the concentrated portions on the plant, it can allow for very funky root growth originally, as it can kind of not aid in the scabbing process, but almost serve as the scab, you could say. Uh, the buildup of nutrients. The plant will be able to take in a lot of the oxygens and nutrients that are readily available in the Clonex solution, but it can also cut the plants off from a lot of available nutrients in the soil as well. So that's also very important. Um, so the main thing I would like to do is implement a standardized operational procedure for trimming, so that way every member of the team approaches this with the same technique and ideology that you do need to cut a plant at a 45-degree angle, as you see here in the picture. And like stated, it helps prevent the plant from scabbing over to really help with root growth once placed in the soil or the hydroponic system. And it really helps the Clonex solution to coat it nice and evenly. So when they were dipping in their Clonex solution, I noticed that it was a very diluted form of Clonex. And I think this is one of the leading causes to their slow process of the veg cycle, because due to the low amounts of nutrients or auxins available to the plant, um, it wasn't able to grow those adventitious roots as quickly as it should or could have, if it did have the amount of auxins readily available that it needed. And this also just makes it harder for the plant to actually stay alive, as it starts to pull nutrients from the soil that it needs to thrive instead of actually using the auxins that are there in the Clonex to help promote the root growth so it can take in more nutrients, and it kind of creates this like weird little paradoxical cycle. Um, to help with the Clonex issue, I would like to completely just ex-nay the dilution process and get rid of that and start using just a straight Clonex rooting gel. Um, so I would like to go ahead and start using this gel that you see down here in the bottom left corner. Um, Now, I know that when you look at the right, that is not a cannabis plant, but the practices for Clonex is pretty much universal across all plants. You really just want to dip it in for that quarter inch, maybe not even a quarter inch. You really only need like a centimeter and a half, maybe 2 centimeters, which is just shy of a quarter inch. But anyway, you just want to cover the tip of the plant that you cut, and you want to make sure it's nice, evenly coated, that you don't have any buildup in unnecessary spots. Um, yeah, so the biggest thing with the Clonex would be issuing another standardized operational procedure to make sure that we are ordering and using straight Clonex gel when we're cloning plants and dipping them into the nutrient solution. That it is not a dilution form, it is straight gel. And it's important to, like you see in this picture, to be dumping your Clonex into a separate little container to be dipping your plants in, because you don't want to be dipping your plants into the original stock solution, as it can lead to contamination or unwanted microbes or bacteria being introduced into our Clonex here. And then after they were going ahead and dipping in the Clonex and placing it into the soil, they'd go ahead and pop it into the growth chamber. And I noticed when they were putting it in the growth chamber that the lighting that they had set up was very strange. It was primarily only blue light wavelength and hardly any red light, which was very weird to see that in a veg cycle, because this setting does not allow the plant to really grow, as the red light is what allows the plant to use um, actually break stuff down quicker and create its own energy to start growing. And the blue lights only really help the plant to become more bushy when the stem is too tall and lanky and can't really support its fruiting buds. So, like, you can use the blue light to kind of suppress the height if you're starting to get a little higher than you wanted to, and it won't be able to support itself and it's getting a little flimsy and tipping over. So, to really help with this, I would like to go ahead and um, uh, I would like to change the light settings and turn up the red light settings for the veg cycle. And if that is not possible with the current lights that we have, I would like to go ahead and buy new LED lights that do have the red light settings, to where you can switch back and forth or change the degree of how much the red light is being shined onto the plants, compared to the blue. So if you look at the picture here on the bottom right, you can see the red and blue lights, and um, this is a little later in the flowering stage, and they have this, and you can even see that there's plenty of red light here in this stage as well, because this is when you want to have the plants really using all the last of their nutrients inside to push it toward the flower. So there's certain points that you do want it. It's just understanding how to use these lights uh, to your benefit, and understanding when they are beneficial to the plant. So this blue light, you can see here, all these plants are super tall and they're trying to fill them out because they're becoming very, very lanky and it's hard for them to support. So they're trying to just fill them out at this point because they don't want them growing any taller. It's going to become hard to manage. So they're just really trying to fill these plants out to get as much uh, product or flower off of them, to get as much fruiting bodies as possible. So during the veg cycle, you want more of a red light like this, as it helps to encourage the plant to use the nutrients within to start creating its own energy, to really uh, help in when it starts using its own energy and those nutrients within and create its own energy. It really helps promote the adventitious root growth, so it helps it thrive a little more when you do transplant and put these plants or the trimmings into new soil. And another thing to think of too, and why I was saying LED lights, is temperature and humidity. So with LED lights, they give off less heat, which can affect the temperature or the atmosphere in the room. And depending on how many lights you have in the room and how big of a room it is, it could have a drastic effect on the conditions that the plant endures. So the biggest problem I noticed with their temp and humidity was that their VDP was set too high to 2.0 kPa, which this allows for way too dry of an atmosphere and causes the plant to close its stomata. And when it does this and it notices that it's way too dry and the air is way too dry, uh, water potential properties are going to take hand, and you're going to have water that starts to leave the plant and enter the atmosphere, because water potential is always going to draw or move toward where there's less moisture. So if there's more moisture in the plant that there is in the atmosphere, it's going to close the stomata, so water's not leaving there, but you can still lose water through the leaves as it starts to slowly work its way through the membranes and evaporate out that way. Um, And another issue I noticed with their setup was their temperature. Their temp was set way too low at 60 degrees. Now, temperatures this low make it difficult for the plant to undergo the necessary processes for photosynthesis and really thrive during the vegetation process. If you look at the picture here down on the bottom right, I know this is during the flowering stage, but the plant's still going to exhibit or show the exact same uh, characteristics under these conditions. You can see the browning in the leaves. You can see the curling on the ends. It's becoming brittle. So that's one thing to really look forward to when the plant is in too low of a temperature. To really help with these, I don't want to say poor practices, but with these practices that are not necessarily uh, correct. uh, Poor wording there, but I would really want to implement a standardized operation for the temp and humidity settings in the room. I would want to make sure that it's very clear and that it articulates that the temperature should be at 75 degrees Fahrenheit and should reach no lower than 68 degrees Fahrenheit. And the temperature should also reach no more than 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And as for humidity levels, I would like to include that into the SOP that the proper setting for veg is 0.8 to 1.1 VDP. So that's a significantly lower VDP, which allows for a higher uh, humidity factor, which will allow the plant to strive and the stomata to stay open and really react to the light in the environment inside the growth chamber that is set up. Now, the 75 degree to 60 or the 68-degree Fahrenheit to 80-degree Fahrenheit, that is the proper range to be having your growth chamber or greenhouse or whatever you're using. This is the correct temperature to be using to allow plants to grow and at their best, um, perform the best processes necessary to thrive through the veg cycle. It's going to allow them to perform the photosynthesis necessary and really use the nutrients available in the Clonex solution and really help promote the adventitious root growth. So that way, once it's even through all the oxins and nutrients in the Clonex solution, it can really dig through the soil and find the nutrients and utilize the nutrients available in the soil, which if it can't do that, it's not going to thrive and won't make it. It's going to end up dying, and we're going to be redoing this veg cycle all over again. So overall, I would like to go ahead and implement an SOP for trimming practices, a standardized operation procedure for cloning practices, a standardized operation for light settings, and then a standardized operation for, um, I dang it, I mistyped there. But that's instead of light and humidity, it should be temperature and humidity settings. I'm sorry about that. But like overall, I think the team can really handle finishing on time. I think a lot of it was their practices that were slowing them down. So now that we're all working on the same page and we'll be working at the same speed and efficiency, I'm really hoping this allows me to encourage the team with a higher pay if they can stay on track. And this should boost morale to help inspire them to stick with these practices and really put them into place. Because I'm afraid that if I do tell them that I'm going to bring in another crew member and I'm going to end up taking it off their pay, that they're going to lose initiative and it's going to cause a drop of quality as they're not going to be paying attention as much. They're not getting paid for what they're doing. If what they were doing before wasn't good enough, and then we're not even going to pay them even more to do even better. So I don't want to create any weird blurred lines. So I think it definitely would be easier at first to implement all these standard operational procedures and make sure just everyone's on the same page and no one's doing one thing in the process and then someone else is doing a completely different thing that negates what the first person did, and then it puts us back at square one, and now we're running in circles. I think with everyone working on the same page and having the same practices and procedures when performing these steps, it'll allow for a lot smoother process, a lot quicker process. And like I said, hopefully this works out and I can give these guys a little bit better pay. And that really drives them to um, stick around and stick with these steps that I'd like to put in place. As you can see here, I have my resources that I used for my pictures, and then there is an article down here at the bottom that you can see that I used to pull some of my information that I stated here today. I hope that this was enough information to really help show that I can really improve the process and the steps for the cloning team, and you'll let me run it. So thank you very much and have a lovely day.